Crusten,
Here.
Graham,
Absent with prior notice.
Harold,
Here.
Livia Wright.
Here. I'd like to welcome everyone out tonight. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote, please.
Butcher,
Aye.
Crusten,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. We're on to item 4.0, open forum, and any topics, anything discussed at open forum must be related to the topics of the special meeting only, not the work session. Do we have anyone signed up? Perfect. Then we're going to get on to item 5.0, action items. May I have a motion on 5.01?
I move to approve changes to the transportation fees as recommended by the administration.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Kevin, did you want to make any comment or anything on that one?
I was trying to log in. Yeah, I just, there are a couple of comments I wanted to make here is one is this overall is not increasing fees. It's only increasing fees for parents of three kids. 3 children would have a slight increase in their fees. So there's not an overall increase in fees. There seemed to be some confusion by us on the board at the last meeting about that. It's more based on dealing with the inefficiencies of the old card reader system we had, and we're trying to correct that. And the other thing is I do want to stress as much to the community and the staff, especially, is if folks are calling in and they're worried about being able to afford transportation fees, we really need to look at whether or not there's an eligibility for the free and reduced lunch program, which would pay for the fees and for the bus, and it takes care of other costs that are in the school district, the participation fees for the sports and different. So if there is a concern, we need to pay attention to that, because for the benefit of the children in our district, we need to provide them all the services that we have available. And that's a great entry point to that conversation. So please, especially you, Jack, your department, watch that, because it's a great opening to really help people out.
Okay, any further comment? I'd like to thank everybody for making sure that information got out to our community too. I read through all the Facebook posts and was paying attention as they were going online, and I think our community did a great job of helping one another understand some of the greater finance issues in the state of Colorado that are impacting the need for continued fees in our district. So thanks to everybody who put the time into that as well. And with that, I'd like to call for a vote, please.
Butcher,
Aye.
Crusten,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries.
Hello.
Dave's still here. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
You're looking good tonight, Dave.
Okay. Go on to the next motion here. We're on to approval of matters related to educational support personnel.
I move to approve the attached personnel change as recommended by the administration.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote, please.
Butcher,
Aye.
Crusten,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. On to item 5.03, action on the 17-18 district budget.
I move to approve the district budget for the fiscal year 2017-18 and the appropriation resolution as recommended or presented by the administration.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hello, Ron.
I'm up here to see if you have any questions. I know we've got a pretty long meeting tonight, so if you don't mind, I would like to go over a couple pages in the budget that I've added.
Sure.
Okay. Have page numbers this time. So depending on what you're looking at, if you're looking at the board packet, it's page 44 or page 32 if you have the budget in front of you. Yeah. I'll tell you when to stop. Right. Keep going. There. Everyone. Thank you, Matt. Everyone see where we're at here? This is our proposed 17-18 expense budget driven from the revenue we're expecting off our student count and state per pupil revenue numbers, adding up to the $101,449,998 that you can see right down here. One of the things I wanted to add to the budget was a little more clarity on how we get from this big number here, which is our student count times our per pupil revenue, how that gets down to each individual school. So you can see we break down that budget, that 101 million, into 6 buckets: internal service, vendors, Falcon Zone, Sand Creek Zone, Power Zone, and iConnect Zone. So you can see all the totals in there and how that adds up to the 101 million. So if you skip ahead the next page, be page 46. So I need that one right here. So I started adding these pages for each one of those buckets. Can you zoom in just a tiny bit up to the top left? That's perfect. So if you see up there, this is that same box that we just looked at and how it's broken down with all the budget. So now I have a full district view. Can you go to the right? And I have the internal service bucket and vendor bucket, and then each zone down the way here with the budget broken up between personnel, facilities, what we spend in extracurriculars like all the sports programs, and then what they have as far as location spend. If you add that across, or I'm sorry, add this total budget number across here, you see the 101 million. Next page. And again, I won't go through all of these, but I break this down now. This is the internal service group. I highlighted that here from that same box, showed central services, educational services, and individualized services. And again, tied to that total over there. So I just wanted to add these pages to show how the total big $101 million budget breaks down to each school. If you go to the next one, we'll look at one zone. Keep going. Yeah, there's the Falcon Zone. You can see up top here, I've included student count in the blue box, and then each school underneath it. I've even added a little more clarity. Do you see this personnel number up at the top left corner for Falcon Elementary? If you go to the next area down, there's a breakdown of how that personnel breaks up into salaries, benefits, and then other payroll. I've done the same thing with that last box at the bottom where I break down the facilities and to utilities, maintenance, grounds, and other type of facility expenses. Anyway, I've added these to help try to bring some clarity to how that big budget breaks down into smaller buckets. That's really all I wanted to show for this. None of the numbers have changed since we discussed the budget a couple of months or a month ago, I guess. So that's all I had. Unless you had any questions.
Questions, anyone? Dave, do you have any questions?
No, thank you for asking.
All right, perfect. Then we are going to call a vote, please.
Butcher,
Aye.
Cruzen,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. We're on to 5.04, action on the 2017-2018 charter school budgets.
I move to approve the 2017-18 budgets for the 6 district charter schools as presented.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Nothing?
I'm up here again to talk about the charter schools. Ryan was our main contact with our charter schools, and with him leaving, we've not had to jump around too much, but we were able to put together, I apologize, that should probably say 17-18 budget up there, but my fault. Anyways, this is the total. This sheet here shows the total aggregate of all the charter schools. The pages following are each individual charter location. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to take those. After this summary here, we do have all the individual budgets that were submitted by the charter schools themselves. So all the detail behind the summaries that we put together are there at the back.
Okay, any questions? Dave, are you good?
I'm good.
All right, then I'll call a vote, please.
Butcher,
Aye.
Cruzen,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. We're on to item 5.05A.
I move to approve the Dean of Workplace Learning job description as recommended by the administration.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote.
Butcher,
Aye.
Cruzen,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. We're on to item 5.05B, teacher on special assignment for zone data design.
I move to approve the TOSA for Zone Data Design Analyst job description as recommended by the administration.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote.
Butcher,
Aye.
Cruzen,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. We're on to item 5.05C, Dean of Concurrent Enrollment.
I move to approve the Dean of Concurrent Enrollment job description as recommended by the administration.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote.
Butcher,
Aye.
Cruzen,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. We're on to item 5.06, action on change of student contact day for capturing kids' hearts.
I move to approve the change in student contact day at Ridgeview Elementary School as recommended by the administration.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote.
Butcher,
Aye.
Cruzen,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. 5.07, approval of policy revision.
After a first reading at the last board meeting, I move to approve revisions to policy GCBA.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote, please.
Butcher,
Aye.
Cruzen,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. 5.08.
I move to approve revisions to the list of policies included in item 5.08 on an emergency basis as recommended by the administration.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Just as an explanation, every year our legislature graces us with new rules that we have to comply with before the beginning of the next school year. And frequently those rules aren't given to us in time for us to go through our regular approval process for policies. So each of these policies has something that has to be adjusted based on something that was approved by our legislature to be in effect by next school year. And we wouldn't have had the information to act on them until this meeting. But of course, to then get it into our handbooks correctly and to be compliant with the law, we have to pass it now. So these will come back to us on a regular approval cycle as well. But to ensure that we are compliant with the law as we hire people in and as we start having students involved in activities as early as mid-July, we need to do these approvals. So with that, may we have a vote, please?
Butcher,
Aye.
Cruzen,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. And as just another commentary for all of you who've been sitting here, we moved through those very quickly on this special meeting agenda. These are all things that we had presented to us at either a prior regular meeting or work session. So these had already had quite a bit of back and forth with our staff. And so we just needed the final approvals. With that, we are going to ask for a motion to adjourn our special meeting.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, a vote, please.
Butcher,
Aye.
Cruzen,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Livia Wright.
Aye, motion carries. Our special meeting is adjourned at 6:45, and we will now move on to our work session. Yep. Are we ready? Okay, so we're now starting our work session, and our first item on our agenda is the Liberty Tree Academy Charter application. Mr. Franco?
Good evening, Andy Franco, iConnect Zone Leader. I'd like to reintroduce Mr. Wilson, Ronnie Wilson with Liberty Tree Academy, our charter application, and just introduce the topic in that we have been going through the review cycle with Liberty Tree Academy, who's proposing a charter for opening in the 2018-19 school year. And Mr. Wilson is here to represent the application this evening for our public hearing.
Invite our board members as well to join. My name is Ronnie Wilson. I have 2 elementary age children that I love dearly, and they sit in the front row, and this already has not been as long as the first time we were here. They appreciate that. I'm the husband of a public school teacher who is the most beautiful person in the room. No introduction needed there. And I truly believe, other than Kevin Butcher, there is, okay. We truly believe that all children deserve a great education. Distinguished Board of Education, it is a privilege to present to you once more, a second time, as Andy Franco mentioned, a request for proposal that you've sent out to us. We're excited to respond to that. We would like to thank the many families who have come out this evening in support of Liberty Tree Academy. Thank you all so very much for taking time out of your summer. I know others are vacationing, and we wish we were with them. I do bring special greetings from Jonathan and Elizabeth Berg of James Irwin, who wanted to be here, but unfortunately were unable to be here, and they asked me to bring greetings. Being in a unique position to have a second opportunity now to present this amazing school to you, our board has chosen this evening to focus our presentation on why Liberty Tree Academy is guaranteed to be a successful school. And you'll see various photographs of the BCSI schools from around the country, including Hillsdale College President Larry Arnn, pictured cutting some ribbon for one of our sister schools, and he plans to do the very same for Liberty Tree when we open the doors to our community fall 2018. Throughout these 2 years of developing our charter application and going through a multiple application review process, our team has identified various essential elements that we believe are important in a successful charter school. And throughout this process, our team has stayed very focused on our mission, and I appreciate that very much. We have listened to our neighbors in the community, and we are here today representing the many college constituents of Hillsdale, as well as all of our supporters. And if somebody knows how to work that thing, that's fine. If you can find ESPN, that might be a little more interesting. Okay, well, I do want to share 4 reasons why we believe and have full confidence in the success of this school, and why you can also share in that confidence. The first reason is with accountability and training. And we know that Hillsdale affiliation means a lot more than just a name only of being a BCSI school. And we've discovered that through this process. We've discovered tremendous accountability and a support network of success. that we believe is second to none. In fact, we brought a document today from the head of the Barney Charter School Initiative, Mr. Philip Kilgore, and he describes the nature of our relationship. Further, we also have a signed agreement with Hillsdale College that has detailed description of this relationship. But we want to emphasize that the world-class training that we will receive for our board, for our educators, our teachers, and our school leader, not one dime is ever exchanged between Hillsdale College and Liberty Tree Academy. And that's clear in our budget as well. The BCSI team has responded immediately to our questions. They have provided resources, experts on our academic program. They've connected us with a variety of people from our own area to make sure that we have fidelity to our mission and to ensure that we are successfully implementing the methods necessary toward fulfilling that mission. The BCSI team is personally invested in the success of Liberty Tree Academy and our networks of successful charter schools around the country and the state of Colorado here and very close to home have been incredibly supportive in our efforts in providing essential information and resources to us, and we greatly appreciate that. Liberty Tree is an American traditional education with a verifiable record of achievement in a diversity of contextual environments. There's no guesswork as to the success of these K through 12 charter schools with the affiliation and support of Hillsdale. Our proven curriculum, our focus on virtue, character, and self-government all yield incredible results, and these are measured in a variety of ways. For example, outstanding performance against the Colorado academic standards. In our last capacity review with the iConnect Zone, we included assessment measures of our sister school in Golden, Colorado. And in only their second year, they far exceed the standards. We also have a variety of other measurements, including the inspirational culture of these schools, satisfaction of teachers, parents, and students, and the demand that BCSI schools have in their respective districts. Secondly, principal, school leader. As mentioned, our agreement with Hillsdale has a very strong and structured training component for our board, teachers, and principal. And we recognize just how important having the right school leader is for our school. And so since we last presented, we've had the opportunity to have preliminary discussions with potential principal candidates and school leaders. And as a result, we have established a timeline to hire the very best candidate to ensure our school is a resounding success. At our last official board training at Hillsdale College, it was just this last month, the head of BCSI assured us that they would provide several outstanding candidates for us to consider. The principal boot camp takes place next month in a very short period of time, and we anticipate the opportunity to meet additionally highly qualified candidates. Among the candidates that we have engaged up to this point, we have been very impressed with the conversations that we've had. All are master teachers. Some have founded BCSI schools around the country. Some have served in an advisory role to BCSI staff. Others hold multiple degrees from places like Hillsdale, have taught in BCSI schools, and even served as principals in some of our current sister schools, and all have tremendous interest in Liberty Tree Academy. So we are 100% confident that we can and will hire the very highest quality and most qualified school leader and leaders to guarantee success. Whomever that leader is, they will have constant contact with BCSI. They have weekly conversations, and in addition to that, as necessary conversations. And we also have the benefit of one of the head developers of our academic program being located here in Colorado in the Denver area, developing other BCSI schools. He was the principal of the twice-ranked #1 school in Colorado during his time here before going to one of our sister schools in the southeast area. So we believe that we have a product to offer the families of District 49 that is solid, and the people that we will employ will truly inspire each and every one of us. And so training and continual support of our school leaders and our teachers is one of the reasons that BCSI schools are extremely successful, even in their earliest years of operation. Thirdly, facilities. We truly do appreciate the additional time that we've had. We've had consultation with Peter Hiltz and others regarding additional time to strengthen our application and specifically our facilities plan. Since our last proposal, LTA has formed a relationship with Highmark School Development, the very same group that CMA utilized in their in their application and facility development. We've signed an LOU with Highmark, and together LTA and Highmark have developed plans to produce a brand new, beautiful facility that will indeed facilitate our mission. That's the most important part of a facility for us, that it facilitates what we desire to accomplish. There's flexibility in the plan to accommodate the actual per pupil revenue, and it will accommodate our plan to add a new grade level each year until we are at full enrollment capacity as stated in our application. We have complete confidence in Highmark's ability to execute on time, and will absolutely be prepared to open in fall 2018. Additionally, we will not exceed the 20% PPR to accomplish this goal. In fact, our goal is to remain below 18%, and we're working very hard to be at 15% or better. That is our goal. And then fourthly, D49. We truly do admire the leadership here of District 49. We know that there is a rich well from which to draw from, and we are pleased to be a part of a team, and that's truly our perspective with this. We've met so many great school leaders of different charter schools and existing traditional schools, and we truly have an appreciation there. Our plan includes utilizing many of the resources of District 49, including the meal and transportation plan, special education resources, training when offered, and a vast knowledge of our district leaders. So here's what you can expect. ESI schools execute success each and every single day in their respective districts. It's in our DNA. High accountability and structure is necessarily a part of what this school is all about. Solid and frequent training, and we are committed to bringing the very best leaders to this school so that every single child has an opportunity to learn and grow and find the joy of that. I'm guessing that's not a wake-up call, but it's probably time for me to shut up. So that's, I think that gets us to where we are. We sincerely appreciate your consideration and the opportunity to once again stand before you. And the process has strengthened us and our commitment and resolve to bring a great school to the families of District 49. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, so at this point, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No,
Okay.
yeah, I think it was a great presentation. I really appreciate the fact that you guys have worked with the district and the staff and Andy's team. There is a lot of wisdom there. And, you know, we love to partner with charters and see them succeed and hit it off on a good foot rather than starting weak. So thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you. And so everyone is aware of the process at this point. So the board's received this presentation. This is the public hearing. At our next regular meeting, the application will be moved forward for action, and a recommendation from our administration will be made to the board about what that action will be. So can you please put that onto our regular meeting agenda? All right. Thank you very much. And I realize many of you were here for that presentation. You are more than welcome, of course, to stay for our open board meeting, but we're also not offended if you'd rather be out and enjoying the cooler temperatures and doing something with your family as well. So we won't be offended if you also choose to exit and not listen to the next 2 hours or so of the remaining of our meeting. Except those of you who are sworn in to vote next time. Take a seat, Mr. Butcher. Oh, Ronnie, I remember your first name, not your last name. Is this your son's things down here before you guys walk out? Tell him his glasses are awesome. My son has the same pair, so he looked very handsome in them. Okay. So with that now, Andy has his iConnect Zone performance report. We can just give them a minute and then.
Andy Franco, iConnect Zone leader, and as our Liberty Tree Academy folks are walking out, I will commend them loud enough to say that they have done an excellent job in sticking with the process over an extended amount of time under their request, but they have done everything that we've asked of them and have been an excellent applicant as far as following process and getting us the information that we need to do a thorough and present to you, the board a recommendation forthcoming as tonight I'm going to give a brief update on where we're at as the iConnect zone. Ooh, that was solid. Do we have a doctor? Not part of my presentation, but thank you, Matt. All right, so I'd like to provide a brief update on primary literacy, and Ms. Rigdon will certainly do a better job of that than I will after my presentation here for the entire district, but also want to highlight the things that are taking place in our zone and the developments that occurred and are occurring, will be occurring in the zone. So with the focus on our learn, work, and lead process, want to talk about primary literacy initiative in the process of being reflective, integrating, and consolidating some of our leadership there. So in reflection of primary literacy initiative that launched in 2015, the iConnect Zone has been able to validate efficient practices and recognize effective strategies, and that's been very beneficial for us to be in further along in this process now to kind of take some time and really reflect on what is working well and what things we really can push on, and especially because so much of our focus is with our charter schools, with our primary literacy. Of course, we work directly with Spring Studio for academic excellence in that area as well, but the majority of our work, of course, takes place in our charter schools offering elementary education. We're working with the integration of primary literacy initiative. It's allowed the iConnect Zone to expand the innovation, refine the process tools, and model best practices with full participation from our charter schools as well as Spring Studio. And the iConnect Zone and district administration played an important role in verifying and validating results as we look to launch a new cycle of learning through primary learning initiative. So we will be focusing in bringing on math as part of that initiative next year as well. And we have administrative representation going to the Dibbles Super Institute in just another week to become more familiar with not only the literacy initiative as far as Dibbles is concerned, but also the math initiative as we launch into that next phase next school year. So in brief, I want to share some data and talk a little bit about how our schools in the iConnect Zone are performing. And this graphic gives you, the board and public, a little bit of information about the results from this current school year as measured by our Dibbles assessment. So you can see starting at the top with Banning Lewis and all the way down to the Imagine Classical Academy at the bottom, the measures from left to right are describing our beginning of the year percentage of students who were on benchmark to the end of the year percentage of students who are on benchmark, and the arrows in the middle indicate the trend. So you can see that Banning Lewis Ranch Academy, Pikes Peak School of Expeditionary Learning, Rocky Mountain Classical Academy, and the Imagine Classical Academy all show an upward trend in students who were on benchmark from beginning of the year to the end of the year. The arrow indicating kind of a flat growth, if you will, for Spring Studio is indicative of the percentage of students only rising from 67% to 69% from beginning of the year to end of the year for our elementary students at Spring Studio. On the other graphic to the far right, we're describing the percent of students who were well below benchmark at the beginning of the year to the percent of students who are well below benchmark at the end of the year. The change there is the indication of a decrease in students because we want to see a decrease in number of students who are well below. So the arrows actually indicate the trend is moving in the right direction, not necessarily the trend is moving up or down, but the trend line is moving in the right direction. So you can see there that each of our schools has had success in decreasing the number of students who were well below benchmark. So I apologize if that graphic is a little confusing. I thought I'd take the time to actually explain that so that we're understanding that while the number is decreasing, that's actually a positive trend. All right, Some highlights and developments that are taking place in the zone. Certainly, we've talked a lot about Patriot High School over the last year and a half, 2 years, and we have adopted and integrated Edgenuity as our core curriculum. It is a blended online curriculum, and we have not moved the school into a full blended model, if you will. Our students still report to our school every single day in a structured environment, but our curriculum is based off of an online curriculum. And this provides us with some opportunity that we did not previously have with our students, offering them more courses, more coursework available to them, and also gives us the opportunity to really engage with their participation as far as student activity in the classrooms and things like that. So it's been a very challenging year in terms of implementing a new curriculum and getting our teachers on board and trained, and getting our students and our families on board and trained. But I would say it's been a successful year in that we survived, and that's always a good thing, and we're better off for it. So our students are really seeing some of the success that can be delivered through that model at this point, and we are looking to enhance that throughout the remainder of through the next school year, I should say. The other big change there is the implementation of Reading Horizons. That is a program that specifically orientates us to dealing with students' reading abilities, especially at the high school level. So much of our reading discussion has taken place at the primary level, and we really understand that in order for students to engage at the high school level, especially in an online curriculum, they need to be able to read the content, and they need to be able to do that at a high level. So Reading Horizons has really offered that opportunity for us, and we've implemented that at both Patriot High School and Spring Studio this year with much success. And then, of course, we are growing the school and community through training additional leaders at Patriot High School. So we're really looking to focus on bringing on leadership through the instructional staff and providing the support that is needed there to carry on the culture that is Patriot High School, because our instructional staff plays such an important role there. So that is something that has been developed and is continuing to develop. Pikes Peak Early College, a very successful launch for this school this year. It's been a heavy lift, as you know, to get a new school off the ground, but the reflective process has helped us focus on the bright spots, especially as we wrapped up the school year, the effective strategies that we implemented, and the efficient practices, and we're ready to plan and launch into our next school year at the Creekside Success Center, which of course is part of the reorganization plan. We've got our office space already over there. We've moved some furniture and things like that, and we're in negotiation with classroom space upstairs and things like that, which has been successful thus far. We're really excited about getting that school program over to the west side of the district, where we can access more students and really meet their needs through an early college model. So kudos to Mr. Kanoki and his administration and teaching team, and the number of families and students that they're serving there at Pikes Peak Early College. Then an update on Power Technical Early College, another charter school that was approved by this board about 2 years ago. And of course, this was their first year of operation with over 100 students being served. I've got an update from them that they have over 300 students enrolled for next year. So within 2 years of launching, they will be at full capacity for the building that they are currently occupying. Was a challenging start, to say the least, with facility concerns and things like that they really did overcome, and it has become what I think that school will continue to be, and that is a very successful model for students who are looking for a different type of education through the trades and the opportunities that are being provided there. So kudos to that team for the tremendous amount of work that it takes to launch a new school and do it well. They've done a really, really good job. Just a couple other highlights here. Spring Studio for academic excellence. The implementation of Reading Horizons, again, has increased the student learning in the area of reading, and that has been a big focus for us as we plan around best practices to develop individualized learning at that school, and that's really been imperative that we focus on the reading component of that to help our students who are engaged individually through that curriculum online to be able to read at that high level. And then we have growing opportunities for students through the high performance program. That was based on the position that the board approved for the coordinator of special student projects. I'd like to report that we have a number of students who have engaged through enrollment at Spring Studio through that program. Anywhere from students, we have a Paralympic cyclist who is enrolled. We have a number of high-performing wrestlers, a boxing program, and we're working with currently a sports team, sports club that promotes wrestling, boxing, and taekwondo that is actively engaged with us to enroll more students. And then, of course, we are engaged with the dance studio and the arts program as well that we brought to your attention when we proposed the position. So that is going very well. And then just a few quick little highlights, if I may. Thank you. From the zone perspective, coaching and leadership support has increased connectivity throughout the iConnect zone, and that was very apparent through our cycle with the primary literacy initiative at the end of the year of how much support we've been able to provide for our charter schools within the zone, as well as our coordinated schools within the zone. The zone is also, I just want to highlight this, that the zone is also leading at the state level and as well as the national level on a number of different things, but inclusive of charter school authorizing and the best practices that go along with that. And then we're also have had the opportunity to lead at the state and national level regarding blended learning, and that should be noted. And then we are launching a new cycle of professional development focused on rigor and relevance for the 2017-18 school year. And what that is an opportunity for us to engage our schools, coordinated and charter, within the zone on a platform that we can share ideas around and implement in the individualized schools that we operate without conflict of educational model, and really have a focused conversation on what's best for students and how we can engage them in a rigorous and relevant way in the classroom. So we're really excited about having that connectivity within our zone as we launch into the new school year as well. Thanks for the extension of my time. Are there any questions?
Dave, do you have anything?
Andy, just one thing that I'm noting is with addition of more schools being added to the charter, how are you balancing that in terms of connecting them either with each other or with you, or how does that sort of dance occur with?
That's a great question. Part of the goal of the iConnect zone is to stay connected. We first had to reconnect a bit, but now we are focusing on staying connected. So in response to that, I think the appropriate answer is that we look for applicants or people that want the support that we're willing to offer as an authorizer. And thus far, those schools that have been authorized and granted the opportunity to provide education for our students in the district are seeking support from our district. So that's made it much easier than maybe finding resistant applicants and things like that that are really looking to operate completely independent of the district. So I'll leave it at that, but I do have to say kudos to those operating charter schools and our coordinated schools within the zone, that they have been completely on board with support as far as receiving that and giving that, not only back to the zone, but to each other. And that's been great. So we've had a lot of success with that. Yeah, actually, there's been, as Ms. Levere had noted earlier about legislation and things like that, there was some specific legislation passed around charter schools and compliance around some of the things that they need to do. And, every time we ask, they produce, and that's really helpful. And, we've had a few of our charter schools that have been on our watch, if you will, over the last school year. And I would like to say that those schools that have been participating with us during that probationary time, if you will, have been very responsive and have really upped their game as far as providing the things that we've expected from them over the last school year. So to answer your question, yes, I think we've got some very responsive and very supportive schools that we're working with, and it's been working well.
That you're seeing that are, we need to.
Boy, that's a good question as well. I can't think of any concerns that raise huge red flags at this point. I think it's always a good idea for us to be cognizant of the opportunities that we're providing for individuals and as the community as a whole. And so I think being cognizant of how many opportunities we provide is something that the board should consider. I think that what we also should be considering is whether or not we can provide the opportunities as a district that families and parents are choosing for their students. And if we can't, then we should open our doors and, of course, allow those opportunities to be provided if those can be supported through our district. So at this point, I wouldn't say I have any concerns. I would say those are more observations. And I would say that at this point, the structure of the iConnect zone is very healthy to support schools that offer independent learning structures, and our team is working well together. Those that are operating those schools are responding well. So I would say there's good health to be able to provide opportunity at this point. He appreciates that, yes.
Anybody else have anything? Peter, do you have anything to add?
No, for both of these items, I think the strength and clarity of Andy's presentation really shows why having an iConnect zone dedicated to alternative and optional schools is a good idea. And I think great information, and you can see how the new structure of support in the iConnect zone is paying dividends already. So I really compliment Andy and his team and their ability to help a charter applicant become stronger faster is good evidence of that.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to say thank you because I know across your zone, you've had quite a few moving pieces and heavy lifts this year. So it's exciting to see them all taking flight and doing as well as they're doing and seeing the changes that are happening, because I know that was a heck of a lot of work for you this year. It was a pretty heavy lift, and you made it with every single piece that was a heavy lift, because more than one of those was a heavy lift this year. So thank you very much for all of that time and for doing that for our kids.
Thank you.
All right, so we are now on to our primary literacy performance review.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Christy Rigdon. I am the coordinator of literacy performance for the district. And tonight my goal is for you to have a better understanding of reading acquisition, the journey of a student as they learn to read throughout the school year, and to present our end of the year data. Learning to read is not something that naturally happens like walking or speaking. There are 4 processors in the brain that have to function properly well together in order for reading to occur and for readers to be strong. Those processors are the auditory processor, the visual processor, meaning processor, and the context processor. So when all of those processors function appropriately, we are able to weave skills together to be fluent, skilled readers, as illustrated here in Scarborough's rope model of reading. In the lower left-hand corner, you see word recognition skills. And once those skills are mastered, they're pretty well set. It's kind of like riding a bike. The language comprehension skills above that are skills that we continue to grow throughout our lives. So we were always learning new words and building background knowledge. And when all of these elements are learned, you have a strong reader. And if any of the parts of this rope are weak, like a real rope, they will fray and they aren't able to carry the load. With reading, that's our cognitive demand of reading. So all of this starts with phonological awareness, or the ability to identify and manipulate sounds. And so we're going to activate your auditory processors tonight, and you can all play along. We're going to do an activity that some kids in Read Camp actually did this week. So I'm going to say a word, and you will repeat the word. Then I will ask you to change the first sound in the word to create a new word. So it goes something like this. So if I say park, then you say park. Then I will say change the p to sh. And your response is shark. Very good. All right, so say shark. Say change the sh to d. Good. Say dark. Change the d to sp. Nice. Say spark. And change the sp to m. Say mark. I didn't hear everybody. Say mark. Change the m to b. Nice. And say bark. Change the b to h. Hark. Very good. So you just activated your auditory processor. Now out loud, try reading this. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the momrass outgrabe. See, it's even tough for me. Beware the jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jujubborb, and shun the frummiest bandersnatch. How was that? It was hard, right? It's challenging. What's a slithy tove? So while this piece is written beautifully, to decode the words, we don't understand what it's really saying. We can decode it because we understand the rules of phonics and we understand the structure of our language. But what is it to slithy tove? We may conclude that it is some kind of noun being described, but we don't have the background knowledge or the word knowledge to really understand what this piece is talking about. So this piece is an excerpt from the poem, The Jabberwocky, written by Lewis Carroll. So just now you've had a couple of experiences from the beginning of learning to read to that reading comprehension and background piece. And so this is just a small snippet of what a student might experience as they are learning to read. I think as adults, we kind of forget how this all happened when we were kids. So what does go into the student experience in the year to learn, to help a student learn to read? Well, the answer is a lot. This is the Welcome to My World. This is a mind map that represents the coordinated, concentrated effort to create readers in D49. Students start the year with assessment and dive into core instruction. Behind the scenes, staff are looking at data and assigning interventions. After each benchmark period, school and district leaders collaborate on progress and plans. Read plans are developed and shared with families at conferences. Progress monitoring ensures instruction is working, and if not, the instruction should change. Meanwhile, teachers and leaders are improving their practice through multiple professional development opportunities. Leaders work with partners through the ELAT, ELG, and Start Strong grants. Community and families get involved with the school through literacy nights and parent-teacher conferences. Leaders continue to develop, plan, and learn at the Colorado Literacy Leadership Summits, co-sponsored with MION, and with the Department of Education Literacy Office, we are learning, and with the Amplify team. So all the meanwhile, students are still learning in classes. And this school year, some schools added after-school tutoring for students. This summer, nearly 240 students are participating in summer read camp at 3 sites with 24 staff, 55 UCCS pre-service teachers, and those students are benefiting from collaboration and coordination with multiple departments and community agencies. Planning and preparation and implementation of interim break camps is now nearly a year-long endeavor for Wendy, Sydney, and I in Learning Services. And that is the journey of a student. So you can see why I've got all this gray hair now. All right, so I tried adding up all of the hours, the resources, and people that go into creating one reader, but it's really too complicated to capture completely. A single student with a significant reading deficiency who attends all 3 reading camps conservatively puts in 500 hours a year at school and at home directly into reading. That's what the student does. This does not count all the adult time, countless hours of planning, assessing, evaluating student work, reflecting, changing teaching practices, leaders coordinating, guiding, managing these efforts, support staff running efforts behind the scenes in data management, read camp development, grant management, even transportation, or the efforts, not to mention the efforts of our community partners working with us. So it was easier to list all the people that are involved, or maybe it would have been even easier to say the people not involved, because really it takes everybody in the district working together to make things work for our students and to create readers. So now this year's results. This data reflects the percentage of students reaching benchmark for the last 3 years by grade level. And the bottom arrows are the beginning of the year data. The kind of marks towards the middle are the middle of the year data, and the top of arrow is the end of the year. Kindergarten, as usual, shows tremendous growth with 92% of students at or above benchmark on Dibbles Next. It is possible for all grade levels to reach this level, as really 95% of people are able to learn to read. Odyssey and Woodman Hills showed over a 50% increase from the beginning of the year to the end of the year in kindergarten. So that's tremendous growth for them. First grade, as you can see, was a struggle for many schools. The schools showing higher levels of growth have an emphasis on mastering those phonological skills in kindergarten and getting students in first grade into decodable and connected text earlier, because they are looking forward, way forward to end of the year goals and even beginning of the year second grade goals. So they're really looking forward of what they need to go. Banning Lewis and Pipsel were part of the Start Strong project through ELAT that focused on first grade and kindergarten. In first grade, they respectively had gains of 18 and 22%. Imagine had a 28% gain in first grade, Spring Studio a 25% gain, and Ridgeview a 25% gain. So part of the success the charters have had, I will echo what Andy said earlier, the charters are attributing to the team in the iConnect zone, the leadership team in the iConnect zone, Tina Vidovich and Heather Mavel. So second grade, typically flat nationally, shows improvement starting and ending higher this school year. But what is also important to notice is that if you look at the orange arrow in first grade where they ended up, and then look at the green arrow in second grade, they had minimal summer loss. So that's telling us something is happening between first and second to maintain those skills over the summer. And so this will be an interesting group to watch next year to see if that momentum continues, or to ensure rather that that momentum continues. Third grade, you'll notice, did not have as much percentage increase over last year, but it is important to note that 12 out of the 14 schools made above average progress when compared nationally in the Amplify system to like starting schools. So that's a system that holds over 400,000 students. When we look at third grade, we did not make our UIP goal. It was a pretty ambitious goal of increase of 20 percentage points, but some schools came close. RMCA had 92% of their third graders at benchmark at the end of the year. Meridian and Ridgeview had 89%, and Pipsel had 87%. So they're the mark to beat. And half the elementary schools had double-digit growth at this grade level with 10 to 18% increases. So next year, we will again set the bar high because we know that kids can, and so can our staff. So in order to be on this graph, students must have a beginning and an end of the year score because it's more of a cohort of who we've had the entire school year. As a reminder, green, our little green people here are students who scored at or above benchmark. Yellow is below benchmark, and red is students scoring well below benchmark. Whoops. How do I make it? Oh, it's a PDF. Oh. So what you will see, if the animation were working, is that we retained most of the greens, students reaching benchmark, and very minimal loss. We had most of our students move from below benchmark to well above benchmark, or to at benchmark or above. And then over half of our students who scored well below benchmark at the beginning of the year moved up to below benchmark or at or above benchmark. So sorry about that. It's a really exciting animation that my data analyst will be upset that you didn't get to see. See me later. Okay. So overall, to create better readers, they have to read. This year was our second year of the implementation of Myon, and we had a 32% increase over last year in hours read and a 27% increase in books finished. This is only students reading electronically. This does not account for students reading hard books. What we have seen is that there's also an increase in the amount of books being checked out in our libraries. And that is exciting to hear. Several students have developed, or several schools have developed close relationships with the library, Pikes Peak Library District, bringing in the bookmobile, having library card drives, and exchanging like events that are happening in the school with the local library and vice versa, so they can advertise for each other. So I hope you have a better sense of what it takes for a student to learn to read through the school year and the tremendous effort that it takes on our behalf. We're about students, we serve students, they're our customer, and so that's what it's all about. We have not yet arrived, but we learn more and more every year about what to do better. Thank you.
So two quick things. One, they're really just comments, but I know they expanded a bit on the Myon, the books they have access to. And as a parent watching kids using it, it was interesting that it has become the go-to initial source for them when they begin projects. So the biography project for my fourth grader, first thing he did was search Myon for some of the people he was interested in learning about to have to become as a part of the Wax Museum. My son, who had a bird project as a third grader, first thing he did was type in birds on Myon and pull up all the bird books in Myon first to decide what kind of bird he was interested in. So they're integrating it into the kids are themselves choosing to use it as a resource to help them find information for their other subjects. which I think is a really cool thing because they've expanded that. The other thing for board members to hear is I was at the state review as the board member representative, because that, that makes the state kind of happy when they see multiple levels involved. So I get to sit in the back of the room and listen. But one of the interesting comments I heard from them was that kids who've been with us sustained are skyrocketing. And part of why we don't see some of that skyrocketing in the overall data is because of the level of mobility within our district. And so it's almost, we're almost at the point, at least from what I heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, of trying to figure out the way to get those percentages to jump much further may have to be looking at how we deal with the more migrant part of our population. Because the kids who are with us year over year, the kids who start with us in kindergarten, by the time they get to third grade, we're doing a really, really good job of getting them there. It's the kids who are joining us somewhere in between that we're trying to figure out how do we help them catch up, which is an interesting, it's an interesting dynamic to be aware of as we look at, as y'all are developing the goals and thinking about where resources need to be. And it may be an interesting conversation at some point, resource-wise, with some of our military partners, seeing as some of that mobility would be their children coming in. But I thought that the comment from the state was incredibly complimentary to our folks, because they're saying we're recognizing at the state when we disaggregate by people, students you've had for a while versus students that are coming to you new, we can really see the difference in those kids. So even though we might not see those percentages jumping as large, the state's telling us there's a difference when they disaggregate. So kudos to everybody on that, because that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And it's not an excuse that
No.
we have increasing enrollment and that we have high mobility. Those are facts. How do we deal with those facts in a systematic way that makes a difference?
Right, exactly. It
Yeah.
becomes the next level of problem to solve, right?
Exactly.
Doesn't mean you say, oh, well, there's nothing we
Unpeeling the
can do.
layers.
It's here's the next layer of solution, just like Read Camp has been a solution for our kids who, as you said, a reminder, not only are the adults doing a lot of hard work, but 500 hours is a heck of a lot of work for a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old or 8-year-old to put into something that's hard for them. So that's a pretty amazing commitment on those kids and their families' part too. So thank you. And I
Thank
look
you.
forward to how we solve that next step.
Great. It's a pleasure to represent all of the staff who work so tremendously hard and work tremendously smart to get the results that we're getting. So thanks.
Okay, so, and Dave, I'm sorry, did you have anything? Are you,
Thank
okay.
you. Thanks, Christy.
Okay, so now we are on to the concurrent enrollment performance update with Ms. Perez and Mr. Finch.
Thank you, Christy, for helping us build the firm foundation and fantastic work that you're doing. And now on the other end of that spectrum, the secondary side, myself, Director of Concurrent Enrollment, I'm Mary Perez, Director of Concurrent Enrollment, and Paul Finch, our Coordinator of Concurrent Enrollment, are here to give you an update on our D49 Concurrent Enrollment Program, including the growth of the program, our customer feedback this year, the college instructor program, and our priorities for the coming year. So this first table just shows the comparison between fall and spring for this last school year, our student enrollment, the number of college credits that they earned. You can see the increases there, as well as the number of college courses that they've passed, with some pretty impressive passing rates, 92 and 93%, which means our students are doing really well, getting A's, B's, and C's in college level classes. These students include both on-campus as well as off-campus campuses, as well as our AVP students down at the Centennial campus at Pikes Peak Community College, our 12+1 students that are in the Ascent programs on all of our high school campuses, as well as our early college students at Pikes Peak Early College. They average out to be about 6 credits per student per semester, which is about 2 classes each semester. And 38 students receive professional and industrial certificates in EMT, CNA, CAD, culinary arts, welding, machinery, and automotive service technology. 92 and 93%, of course, does mean that not everyone passed every class. We had a few students that either had to withdraw before the end of the semester, or they may not have successfully passed the class with an A, B, or C. And those families are responsible for repaying the tuition for those classes, which is about $150 to $160 per credit. And I just want you to know that those fees are put in Infinite Campus, and we do hold the students and the families accountable, and our high schools are doing an amazing job of collecting those fees. For the fall semester, we've already collected 90% of the fees that are due and 50% for the spring, and they just found out about them 30 days ago. So we're doing a really good job of holding ourselves accountable for those repayments. Next slide is just a graphic showing our concurrent enrollment as well as the college credits that they've earned. The first 4 bars in dark green are actuals from the first 2 full years after our pilot, which started back in the spring of 2015 with 100 students. We're now predicting almost 400 students in concurrent enrollment for this coming fall. Those 2 middle, kind of middle green bars are fall and spring for the coming year. We've seen steady growth over the last 2 years, and we're predicting an uptick in the growth starting in the fall of 2015 because Pikes Peak Early College is growing their concurrent enrollment and moving into the 12+1 and 12+2 as an early college designated school. Both PPEC and PTEC are allowed to hang on to kids for multiple years with the free college option. And so PTEC will also be expanding and beginning their concurrent enrollment in fall of 2018. Banning Lewis Ranch has already met with us twice. They're starting those information sessions to begin. They're planning them now to begin rolling those out around Christmas for the next school year. We also have seen some significant growth in our AVP program, the Centennial Campus. These are career pathways. This program has been rebranded by Pikes Peak Community College as Career Start now. We've seen a 54% increase since we've started the transportation. And we've started a lot more conversations about pathways. So students are starting to understand that these college opportunities in the trades are very viable career options. They're open to juniors and seniors. We have 43 students total enrolled for the fall, and a bus holds 48 students. And I only say that because I see this exploding. We may be coming back looking for more transportation in the future. The most popular programs are zookeeping, welding, fire science, diesel power technology. Cybersecurity is a brand new program they've just started for the coming fall. Culinary arts is huge, as you can see, and automotive service technology. I also want to point out that these students often have finished half of an associate's degree by the time they finish the AVP program. And if they stay on through that 12+1 Ascent program, which is offered on all high schools, they can almost or sometimes do finish their associate's degree. So Matt Meister was kind enough to help us design a customer service survey for our parents this past year. First time we've launched something like this to our parents, and we did that in this late spring. 78 parents responded, which was very exciting. It's about a 25% response rate, which we were excited about for our first year. We asked parents about whether or not information was easy to find, course alignment, course load. Did their students feel prepared? Did they know how to get help at the college or at the college level? And were they receiving timely feedback for their questions? Overall, we thought the responses were very favorable, but we do see we have some opportunities for improvement in getting that information out. And we're going to be working on our website to clarify that. And Paul Finch has some more details on how we're going to address those issues. Parents also had some really good information about, or really good recommendations about expanding our advertising. They continue to tell us how surprised they are that more families are not aware that we offer concurrent enrollment. So we think we will be coming up with some new advertising strategies for the coming year. They also are interested in expanding transportation, but we already did that in the spring, about 3 or 4 weeks into the semester. One of our routes was not being very well utilized, so we moved that money into supporting students at the Rampart Range campus in the mornings. And so we'll be rolling that out again next year. Parents are also interested in expanding our on-campus, on our high school campus college options. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Paul Finch, who is not only our coordinator of concurrent enrollment, he's also a college English and literature professor on several of our campuses. He works with our teachers to develop them into college professors. And he's going to talk a little more about our on-campus courses, developing teachers, and our priorities for the coming year.
Nation side, you can see teachers who are coming on board. And we've also added some classes, what we call campus pathways courses. It's what Pikes Peak Community College calls them. We're very proud about the second one there because we have been chosen as one of 3 districts to pilot English 122. And we're proud again because they're going to allow us to pilot the pilot here in the fall for Falcon High School at Falcon High School. We're also going to be adding some courses in ethics and logic, which connects with some things that some principals in the schools have been concerned with in terms of critical thinking. So we're going to be able to add that, and that'll come along nicely with, particularly with, say, what Vista Ridge is doing with their new class, their critical thinking class. We just wanted to show you this. This is a shared document that we share with all of our counselors. And we've had some success with this so far, and it's really growing in that all the counselors see where all the courses are being offered. The campus pathways courses are being offered all over the district. And so we show them exactly how many seats are left. And then Mr. Hilt suggested to us that we add the Creekside courses. And this has really helped our relationship with Pikes Peak Community College. We're showing them that we're really helping them fill some of those seats. And these are the seats that are most popular with our students throughout the district. So I came back from a regional conference, and they were pushing this idea that in terms of marketing and advertising, why don't we ask our students more what's going on in concurrent enrollment? So I came back excited and set up a survey, and I went around to all of our campus pathway students in the district. There were about 80 students, and we just asked them these types of questions, and I won't go through all of those. But they, as students will be, wonderfully, they were very honest with us and gave a lot of testimony, but we also asked them about their classmates and their friends who were not in concurrent enrollment. Here's one that I did not put up there that I thought was very interesting in their honesty, and that was, they said, a lot of our friends just want to be high school students. And I was a little concerned about that. I understood it, but we were a little concerned about that because where we're concerned, we all know that, you know, fast food, some companies are going with kiosks. Retail is going e-commerce, and companies are dropping their stores. I can't remember what I just heard, which company it was, but are going to close down some more stores. And so those students who wouldn't get the training that we offer, they're going to have fewer opportunities where that's concerned. Hurry up. And also in the last one there, just reflecting back and planning forward. We have a great relationship with our national organization, NACEP, and Mr. Hiltz and Lewis and I and Mary have been involved heavily with them. We also have a student parent guidebook that we've created. And we're really excited about the ELD collaboration that we're doing. They're translating some documents for us, and we're going to be able to speak to their folks and maybe even offer some help there from some of their students in terms of even the remediation. And that's about it. Questions?
So one kind of, as you're talking about how to expand advertising, one thought is a lot more communication, oddly enough, at the middle school level, because I've a rising 9th grader and a kid enter a rising 8th. And my kids are very aware because I'm their mom and I'm drilling into their head, you know, these are the kinds of conversations we're going to have. But not very many of their friends' parents are aware of what we're offering, but certainly marketing from those around us make them very aware, and conversations from parents of older siblings and things from maybe when some of these programs didn't exist in our district. They're aware of, what they heard from someone 4 years ago about program, across the city, and not aware that it's right here in their own back door and also available. And so some of those decisions then impact whether or not they even choose to enroll in one of our high schools, where they then find out about these opportunities. And where we're having a lot, my kids are the beginning of the group that have to have the new graduation guidelines. They're talking a lot about ICAPs and career planning and what kinds of things are you interested in. I think some intent, possibly that might be one way to help increase that awareness, is getting some of that intentionally out into the kids' heads in the middle school, but then also into the finding ways for that to be incorporated into things like anytime the staff at the middle schools are interacting with parents, helping them understand what, because we really are supposed to be looking at 6 through 12 opportunities and 6 through 12 planning, having some of those conversations even with 6th and 7th grade parents may make the parents better consumers, because for many of our kids, it'll be the parent telling the kid, hey, wait a minute, let's sit down and look at these options, that help them overcome the I just want to be a high school student conversation, right? Because they may not even be aware that, but welding is something that really is out there as concurrent enrollment. And, here are all these other trade programs that are there that I don't even think most people are aware their kids can access. So that would be one suggestion from my
2 points if I could. Manager of workplace learning is going to be huge. We look forward to forging those relationships. That's one big one. Another one that's already happened is Mary Perez has already met with one of the middle schools. Study and start talking about this. So we're excited about what we'll see in the coming year.
The word college and high
Thank you so much for all the work you've both put into it. Does anyone else have anything? Dave, do you have anything to add, or are you good?
I'm good, thanks.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so now we're on to revised policies, and Dr. Lamond, I believe, is both.
that would be helpful for them if we're hearing from them that, hey, I've got some questions, I've had some situations come up.
Okay, cool. Anybody else have any questions? So go ahead, sorry.
Does transportation and food service and like secretaries, those type of people get any of this type of training also?
So for the all school staff will be trained annually, and then every 3 years, that would include all of those individuals. So when I say central office or Creekside, that really is anybody that a child may feel comfortable with, a bus driver, a para on the bus, a cafeteria worker, an attendance person who the child feels comfortable with that might come up and utter something about, such and such happened last night or such. So yes, absolutely. We want all individuals to be aware of it so that they're not going, oh, I don't know what to do, and nothing happens.
Here's a question. Could it be a requirement for employment, Dr. Lamont, that would be something that they would have to have in order to start work?
So I would probably turn that question over to Mr. Anderson, if you would make, since I'm not familiar with the requirements of mandatory requirements for employment.
I'm Paul Anderson, Director of Human Resources. I think, sure, we can make it a condition of employment or continued employment, I think, to attend or acknowledge training in these areas. I think if we decide that they're important enough for us as an organization, that we can make that a requirement. I think from a practical standpoint, completing that before every person starts
Might not work.
That's a big challenge, but I think there are a number of things that certifications or trainings that we require within X number of months of their start and so on. So we could evaluate that.
Yeah, because I was going to say, if you're looking at things like in person, that's not like if you have a mid-year hire, for example, some of those trainings may have already taken place. So it may be something you look at as within the first year of employment, or something that gives those who have to do the training the flexibility to actually do the training. Is the other piece that would have to be considered with
Right,
that,
which is why the Schoology course plays a huge component in this, because we hire throughout the year. It's not that we hire by the first day of school and we have everybody on board and we never hire again. That would be great. So we have to have some flexibility in venue that the others can choose from. Some other teaching tool that they can use in order to learn. And then again, ask questions through that Schoology course so that they're not left, okay, well, I took this, but I don't understand what I'm supposed to do.
Okay, so are we all okay with Nancy's plan by consensus here? Okay, so I think we agree with your suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, and I believe you are also ensuring all students meet standards, the policy changes for there?
Right, and the only thing that was any changes to that is just to kind of continue that it's a team discussion. There are a number of teams that are involved in determining if a student is making progress, if a student needs to be retained, if a student needs to be promoted or accelerated. So again, the edits in there, we're just keeping it as a team kind of discussion. The principal ultimately makes the final determination in collaboration with the team.
Okay, any questions on that policy grouping, IKE? Did we lose Dave?
I'm good.
Okay, so you're good, Dave?
Yep,
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So are we're okay to move that one forward as well for July? That's okay. Maybe his phone went dead? Is that him calling?
All right, thank you.
Dave, are you gone?
Dave?
Dave's left the building.
Do you need to call him back? We still have a quorum.
Trying to add you, we lost Dave, so hold on.
Mr. Gross, they hung up on you.
That's not a very good sign.
No, it's not.
Especially when I lost both of them.
Yeah.
Kevin, maybe it was because I was in Brett's chair and I didn't bring any spreadsheets to the table. So that might have been the issue.
Kevin with technology. I'm sorry.
Leave your message.
You're gonna call. You're gonna answer him when he calls, and then we'll be good. Okay, so we've moved both of those to the next meeting. And so now we'll do Dean of Pathways Learning, and you're here for Dr. Pickering, I assume.
Actually, for myself on this one, but Dr. Pickering approved it already. So my name is Bruce Gross. I'm the principal at Vista Ridge High School, and we are wanting to create a new job description called Dean of Pathway Learning with the new graduation requirements, with the expectations of what we want from our pathway classes that were all approved, the pathway exploratory class, the pathway design, and the pathway mastery series. This would be the person that oversees that information, make sure that ICAP is being covered throughout the process. The great part about this position is it ties really heavily with the new graduation requirements, because if you look at the new graduation requirements, it's not only that they demonstrate mastery in specific subject areas, but they demonstrate mastery and complete their pathway. And so this person will help us coordinate that overall. I'm going to pause for just a second.
Okay, and so is this another conversion of one position to another, or is it a new position?
It is, as you see at the back on the bottom of that, it said the amount budgeted was already put in there, including benefits, and that's currently allocated in our staff funding.
Okay. So is everyone okay with moving that one forward? All right, so we'll move that to the next meeting, please. Technology Quality Assurance Manager, and that's Paul and Brett.
Brett Ridgway, Chief Business Officer. This is a job description that you initially saw back in February. We were trying to determine which angle to head with this, meaning was this going to be an employed position or was this going to be a contracted position? So this job description was written actually back in December and January with the help of some consulting and then presented to you. And so now that we have pursued that decision and we've actually hired a person to fill it as an employed capacity, we recognize that we hadn't actually formally approved this job description. So we're just bringing it, there hasn't been any changes since to what you saw in February. So we're just bringing it to you for the formal process.
Okay, so I'm good with moving that forward, you guys? All right, so we got a consensus to move that one forward. Thank you. You okay, Dave? Oh, Tammy. You're okay. Board Certified Behavior Analyst position, Nancy.
So this is pretty much just an update, also to get it into the current district's format for job descriptions. When the original job description was written back in 2012, the BCBA was somewhat new in the employment marketplace. So this is just an update. There's really, so it's new, but it's an update because we've hired them. We've hired BCBAs before.
Okay.
So
it's an update to existing job description, but the position is not currently filled Because,
position is currently filled.
Okay.
But we use the old, well, we use the new job description because of the short period of time we had. But there's not a significant change, I guess,
okay,
what BCBA's understand that they're doing. Our job description was behind the times.
okay. Okay, so but it's still it's an existing one we're fixing, basically.
Basically, yes.
Okay, so we all okay with moving that forward?
Yep.
Okay, consensus to move that one forward as well. Job classification review, Mr. Anderson.
Good evening, Paul Anderson, Director of Human Resources, sometimes Director of Job Description Changes. I think tonight has been a good, sort of provides some good rationale for why we're going to have this series of discussions. So tonight is the first in, I think what'll end up being either, over 3 or 4 meetings, we'll talk about job descriptions, job classifications, some on compensation, and sort of the overall organization or of our positions for how we get work carried out in the district. So thank you for the opportunity to begin this conversation. And I think some from a purpose or outcomes perspective, I would say tonight this series of meetings or discussion items will be some education. It'll be learning, discussing, and discovering opportunities for improvement in the way that we describe jobs, the way we organize jobs, and I think we'll point to some actions or next steps for improving what we're doing. So we have 4 primary categories of jobs in the district. And there are a few others that aren't mentioned here, but these are really the ones that make up the roughly 1,800 or so employees that are full-time and part-time. Tonight we'll be focusing on the educational support personnel positions, or ESP. ESP is the second largest segment of our employee groups. The largest being licensed staff, which is around 900 or so, and they're incorporated in that exempt line in this table. But to see that this is a really significant segment of our workforce. Some of the characteristics of ESP in the past and in other districts today, it's often has been referred to as classified. So historically, in public education, you had certified, or some people said certificated, and classified staff, so certified and classified. And we've really moved away from both of those, and we refer more generally to licensed staff and to educational support. They are non-exempt in every case. A little FLSA 101, non-exempt means that they are under, by law eligible for overtime pay for anything over 40 hours. Department of Labor assumes that every job that we have is a non-exempt or hourly, or would be paid hourly, unless we prove otherwise through a series of tests are paid on an hourly basis through Novatime timekeeping system, and some by timesheet. Can be full-time and part-time. Calendars vary widely. The school-based personnel are as low as 158 days, still considered full-time and eligible for benefits, on up to full-year staff at 260 or 261, depending upon whether it's a leap year. There's a set of policies, in the G policies, that cover personnel. There's those that start out GD, relate to or cover educational support staff. And then in the employment relationship with educational support is at will, meaning educational support staff don't work under contracts. We don't issue contracts every year. We don't. We offer letters of assignment that explain this is what we intend, the position we intend to assign you to for the next year. So in an effort to sort of organize the jobs that we have, I'm listing what these categories of staff. So instructional assistants isn't a descriptor that we use, but I think that those that would fall into this are any educational support staff member who works with students. So they're classroom paraprofessionals, could be health assistants, but those who are working alongside, which is where para comes in, working alongside teachers in the instructional process. So approximately 250 employees or positions. Of course, all of our office staff, whether they're school-based or at any of our education service center departments, maintenance services, transportation services, that's approximately 100 employees. Nutrition services is around 100 employees, and then skilled trades and specialists. So these are sort of the categories, if you will, of the, if we were to sort out all of the job descriptions that we have and that you see, they would fall into one of these, in my opinion. The salary schedule, which you approved just in, I guess, a little over a month ago, made some significant revisions to that, including the addition of some additional ranges. So it now is a schedule that lists ranges 4 through 32. Previously it had been ranges 1 through 24. So we've added some higher ranges. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Ranges 1 to 3 were eliminated because of the changes in minimum wage. So we have ranges down the side and steps across the top. Steps have doubled essentially with our new schedule, and so steps are not directly correlating to years of experience, but as we're placing people in positions, we value a year of experience at 2 steps approximately. So this is a condensed version of the ESP salary schedule. So you see we show it starting here at 4 with the lowest starting wage at $10.22 per hour. And then moving up into the newer ranges, 25 through 32, going up to the highest hourly rate of $36.03. In those new ranges, we haven't currently, or we haven't moved any positions into those ranges. So they're there for future use, and we know that in some of our more technical or sorts of positions that market is shifting. This is necessary to enable us to compete in the future for some of those types of positions. So this sets us up for that. You're aware that the state minimum wage is increasing. We've already seen the first phase of the 4 increases. You can see there how this is going to step out by 2020 it'll go to, or January 2020 it will go to $12 per hour. So if we look back at the ranges that exist currently, that puts the minimum wage above where step or range 8 starts. So we're gonna have work to do in I guess dealing with the reality of that. If we keep lopping off, just eliminating ranges and moving people who are in those ranges and up, but don't do anything else, we create what's called wage compression. And we sort of devalue more higher skilled or higher paid positions. So it's something that we need to have a strategy for.
Wage compression is the byproduct that's conveniently left out when proponents come to and make minimum recommendations to minimum wage increase changes. That's their intent, strategic intent on how they present this. So it's a reality then that they force upon us to figure out how to deal with.
So I wanted to present us an overview of some of the hiring challenges. These are, and I've categorized these as in hard to fill and hard to keep. So as an example, so we have a crossing guard position that has been posted, I think, well, essentially for the full school year. I just haven't been able to fill that crossing guard position. So the school administration asks their classroom paras to take that shift or to provide coverage for that. So those are some significant challenges. Bus drivers, I don't know if you all noticed the banner when you came in. We are hiring bus drivers. So that's an ongoing need and challenge for sure. Same with bus paraprofessionals and in nutrition services. And this is, we just don't see high numbers of applicants. So we may have some, they may not be great, great candidates. And so that's the main, primary measure of that. And then how long positions sit open. In the hard to keep or high turnover areas, paraprofessionals in general is fairly high turnover. We in some cases see strong numbers of applicants, but the hanging on to them is a challenge. Some of that may be related to how we manage expectations, how much when we through the interview process, application process, as well as they onboard. What am I really getting myself into? Do I really understand what the job is about? So there's work for us to do there. And the next point there we just need to develop strategies to address these challenges. The example about the transportation salary schedule, you may or may not recall that our transportation director had asked to make a modification or propose a modification to their schedule where we fronted some of the money, in essence, kept the range the same, the top end of the range the same, but in an effort to increase the starting pay over time, it would come back to norm, if you will. So that's an example of an effort to try to a creative way to use sort of the same resources to address a challenge. So moving forward, one of the things that I think will be important for us to do is to develop what I'm calling job families, and it's a common term in the compensation world. And what that would do for us is begin to create a little more organization for this group of positions. That would enable us to do more comparison, excuse me, as we add new positions. And have a more of an objective process for assessing how does this position fit among the others that already exist. How should we pay this position, and so on. It'll assist with workforce planning, as well as I think it'll illustrate for an employee what does a career path look like for me. I think I should have brought water up with me. So in working on this organization of job families, some of the things that we'll consider are the type of work that people are engaged in. Are they engaged in similar work? Does it require similar training and skills and so on? And what is the nature of the work environment that they're in, and the nature of the work performed? As we look at some of the current, I think some of the things that are maybe obvious to some of us, or that we've observed over the last over maybe the last year in our work with job descriptions, we see that we lack some standardization in the use of job titles. We have managers and in ESP positions, and we have managers in professional technical positions. I think we ought to define what a manager means, and then and not have that crossover into multiple types of jobs. Same with coordinators. We sort of have coordinators of many things, but we've done some work to narrow that down to coordinators only fall within the administrative schedule and so on. Specialists is another example. We use that in a number of areas, and I think there's some opportunity for standardization there. Consider modernizing job titles. I think we've reviewed some that call into question what are the contemporary terms that we use for various job titles. We think about what does a title communicate, and it does communicate something to our stakeholders. And the term receptionist does communicate something to someone who's coming to an office, or the title admin secretary or attendance secretary means something to parents when they come to a school. So before we make significant changes, I think we consider what does it communicate, and is that important? And then use some benchmarking to norms. There are norms that exist through the Department of Labor, how other organizations in the markets in which we compete. That doesn't just mean school districts, because we don't in all cases compete with just school districts. But that's another factor for us to consider. This standardization that I've talked about, we've actually done some work over the last few years that you have maybe not noticed, but as you've considered job descriptions, we have been working fairly close to what you see here. And again, this is sort of an effort to bring consistency. So when we consider a title like executive director of let me back up and use the title, the title executive principal. We've been working on that, or associate principal. The root position is actually, for an executive principal, is actually a principal. And we haven't really yet established that as a separate title or a separate role in our compensation system. It really resides as a principal. So anyway, as principal or as leaders propose new creative job titles for positions, my intent will be to continue to use this as a guide for what the role really is. Say in our payroll system or our HR system, this is what we call it. And if it says something different on your business card, that's okay. But I think that's this kind of structure will help steer us toward consistency and logic, and something that we can explain when it comes to how we set up our pay system, how one job compares to another, and so on. Moving forward, the work that I've described that I want us to begin is around this job families and associated pay schedules. So that somewhere down the road, what I'll be showing to you is a sketch of what these job families look like, how they what a progression looks like within that family, and so on. We'll be evaluating job titles using these standards, the new standards. And then I think what you're going to see at some point is a whole slew of job description revisions, because we're going to we'll be looking at, simple technical kinds of changes. We'll be, as we're developing new standards, working to conform to those. And then there might just be some slight tweaks to things, and there might be really big rebuilds. And I think the job description that Nancy brought forward tonight is a good example of one that it just, we don't just do a regular review of a job description. We wait until there's a vacancy, and then we go through the process and say, well, this doesn't really describe what I want it to be, even though a person's been doing this for the last 5 years. So we find ourselves reacting because we have to post right away. And so my hope is that we can get into our organization into a more regular review, so that we are keeping current for the benefit of the employees who are working in those roles. It's explaining expectations, and we are doing less reacting. Questions and discussion?
I'll go if I may. Mr. Anderson, I appreciate your work on this, and certainly I appreciate the opportunity to streamline it. It seems like it would be more consistent in being able to, one, yeah, you're right, the pay schedule and the schedules for everybody on your end, but also for the entire district being able to use more consistent across the district as opposed to one school being than another school, or one being in one zone, different terminology for another zone. So I appreciate that, especially making it consistent for the staff to be able, maybe not necessarily knowing each other's pay schedules, but knowing each other's titles and how that kind of branches out through the schools. I like that, and I appreciate your work on that.
Thank you.
It's a big task.
Yes, it will be.
Doing it.
What do you need from us at this point? Because I agree, I think it's smart work, because there'll be something then consistently conveyed just even by the title meaning. Everybody will know, okay, that's in general, this type of jobs, just, responsibilities. Certainly, as we've gotten creative with some of our education programs, we've come up with some pretty creative titles for some of the positions, but it might not be the best. Being creative with the title might not be the best way to convey what that job really is. And so I think having those guidelines might be helpful in that area too. What do you think is a fair timeline on this for you? Because it is a lot.
I haven't scoped it yet, scoped out the work. It certainly is, it's a good deal of work, no doubt about it. And I think part of what I'll consider is whether it would be smart to use some consulting resource. There certainly are plenty of experts in the field who do compensation work and work like this. We may be able to leverage our Mountain States Employers Council membership for some of this work. I think that this is a work over the course of the school year. I don't see bringing a lot of this to you in the fall, or through the fall semester. My hope would be, though, that any significant changes that we think are important going into the next fiscal year, we'd be getting in front of you early in the spring, so that we have time to get that all reset.
So basically, it could be reset for the budgeting purpose, but also just in terms of not having to be reactive during your next major hiring season. Is that kind of the goal?
Yeah, and I think, in terms of the as big a task as this is, there's the question of, well, where does this fit in priorities? Why is this important? And it certainly partly is a matter of the amount of reacting that we do. The way that our organization is changing, we move really fast, and so that people, our leaders are asking for new and different things all the time, and so we need to get ahead of some of this so that we can manage expectations. We can move fast when we need to. Anyway, so I think that doing a lot of this heavy work will put us in a better position down the road.
So basically, doing the heavy lift now could make you more efficient later. That's what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm glad that you're willing to take this on, and I look forward to seeing the result of that standardization. So you don't need anything more from us at this point, other than you'll be coming with just each general category so that we have some information as you're moving forward, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much for all your time on this.
You're welcome.
I'm kind of excited to see the standardization piece. Okay, so now we are on to number 8, Developer Falcon Community Builders for Classrooms Land Proposal.
Brett Ridgway, Chief Business Officer. This is following up on a agenda item we had at the January 28th Saturday meeting about the various pieces of land that we have and interest that developers have on whether we're going to actually use those in the future. I don't think I've ever written a longer cover sheet, so I hope you had a chance to go through this, because it is a very delicate situation, and so it takes a lot of background to understand the things that are in play here, and the decision points that rest along the way. all the genesis of this, really, the really source of this is this schedule here, which shows available pieces of land. And available meaning that this is land that has been identified as being for our benefit, the school district's benefit for future educational needs. But in large part, they are not in our possession because land can be identified as for the benefit of the school district, but we don't actually accept it or even become the title holder of that piece of land until we need it. That's the process we've just gone through with the Londonderry site for the expansion and what we're trying to go through with the Vista del Pico site. And hopefully we'll be able to get that through at some point. But you can see, 16 different pieces of land across the district here that have been dedicated to us in one form or another. And clearly, there are certain pieces in certain areas of the district where we can say it's very unlikely that we will use certain pieces of this land. And so we have a process that is required for us if we determine that we have to offer the land back to the developer as the first. Is it the first or is that the second? That's the first. So and then then it go to parks, and then if none of this works out, in theory we could take it to the open market and never really get there because the developer pretty much will always want to take it back. And sometimes then the developers then reach out to us and say, hey, here's a piece of land that has been vacant for quite some time. We're still maintaining it. Are you going to in fact use this? And so that is really the source of the discussion that we have here, and that is that a particular developer has come to us with questions on two specific pieces of land, and they'd be number 13 and number 14 here on this map. And these are pieces of land in the kind of the North Powers corridor there. That it is a completely valid question with the amount of school construction we've have in that area, including charter schools, that whether we will need those pieces of land in the future or not. And so the developers has approached us and engaging our interest in releasing that land back to them for what they call fees in lieu of land. There's a formula that drives that calculation for fees in lieu of land. It's about $76,000 per acre. So number 13 you see is an 18-acre site. So the 76,000 is a 1.4 million potential fee in lieu of calculation. Number 14, 12.5 acres is just under $1 million. So if we're talking about both of those sites together, we were coming up just right around $2.5 million of potential fee in lieu of land that would come to the district or be available to the district. What we also have then happening is, of course, Falcon Community Builders for Classrooms, FCBC. You recall that this is a voluntary organization, a public benefit organization that our developers have many years ago established, and it's still unique across to have this in the state. And FCBC, again, is voluntary participation where home builders will contribute something akin to an impact fee. Don't want to call it that in technical terms, but basically for every permit pulled, they will contribute $1,500 to FCBC, and FCBC will work with the district to determine how those funds can be applied for good use in the district. So we have the developers who are part of FCBC looking for how they can benefit the district and also, of course, benefit their companies, their for-profit entities. Okay, so we have to recognize that is a logical motivation for them. And so what is basically being advanced to us is a request or a suggestion that if we would relinquish sites 13 and 14 and create the fee in lieu of receivable to us, that they would like to supplement that funding with FCBC funds for a particular result. FCBC has done this in the past with us, where they've kind of given us a conditional grant, to say this is what they really would like to see come in the district, and so that is something we have to be very cognizant of, because again, this is a voluntary situation, and so we have to work very collaboratively with them. What they are particularly talking about is our central office complex here. And the lack of what is the right word for this? Aesthetic pleasing, anything? Yeah, functionality and aesthetics that represent with that. Of course, we all recognize that our community has been very hesitant to invest money in that, and we understand that when we have a lot of school needs there as well. But our developer community is recognizing this as a constraint on our organization. And so that's why they are presenting this scenario to us to say 13 and 14 plus some additional monies from FCBC if we would pursue something better on a district office. Punch it.
So don't their bylaws say that they build classrooms, not administrative building? How? Because every time I remember being there, it was always classroom type stuff, not.
That has typically been their actually I probably even should say that way. It's in their name, of course, right. But we have not strictly seen it executed that way. I'm not fluent in the bylaws myself. I don't know if Melissa is or Kevin is.
Absolutely. I think it's capital is not classrooms,
yeah.
And it is class, capital. And if you really think about it, they've bought turf for Falcons football field. They've bought scoreboards, so it is not just classrooms. So that is the parameters of their. And again, this is a voluntary organization that really acts to the benefit of the school district, but they have their own, we ask them what we want to spend money on and they don't have to do it, but they tend to be very cooperative. But it is a capital improvement. Since they're builders, they like that.
And having a this is kind of like a matching fund opportunity, right? So it's like if you got a job not in education but in the private sector and you get into a 401k plan, it's the common sense thing to do. You contribute to the 401k plan because the company matches for it, and that's the best return on investment you get with investments. And so here is a good opportunity for return on investment to say that if we would accept that type of proposal, then there'll be these additional funds applied to it. And that way we've scaled it, we've leveraged that be in lieu of land contribution to a greater extent than we would be able to otherwise on our own.
For Falcon Community Builders for Classrooms. Yeah, I thought it was classrooms, but I understand what you're saying, Kevin. And with their assistance and being a voluntary organization, they certainly can, change their minds or direction how they want to do that. What I don't want to sense is that there's direction or telling us how to do that as a board or as a district. Two, it is in my director district, so I'm kind of concerned in terms of those two parcels being right close to each other. Yeah, I see the other schools. Properties that are available or already have schools on them. I'm just curious, what we don't see is the opposite side of Mark Shuffle either in terms of where that direction might go in terms of future planning. And that gives me just a brief hesitation. I think we should have a little bit more discussion and conversation as overall before we jump into this completely. And I'm not saying you're proposing this, Mr. Ridgway, but I think it's an idea to kind of move in that direction of a little bit further the conversation. And I totally forgot my third point.
Okay. Then we won't answer the third point. Okay. And Melissa can and probably should shed some light on this about your second question about future plans on the east side of Mark Shuffle, and also about what what's the likelihood of us using these sites. Before she does that, before I ask her to do that, I guess the thing I would indicate in terms of the balance, the delicacy, and you refer to it, and that's why I was first referring to as well earlier, that this really does need to be a collaboration, and I don't think they would be presenting as a dictate. The $2.5 million of fees in lieu of land would be available to us one way or the other. They are collaborating with us and partnering to say, here's what we recognize and here's how we're willing to help. Opportunity to say yes or no to that, but that's really kind of what the decision comes down to, is a yes or no based on that type of proposal. So Melissa, if you could come speak to some things about those two specific sites, and then also what you see in Banning Lewis Ranch.
With certainly site number 14 more than 13, but I have an idea where they're located at. So yeah, I see the value too, because it's in lieu of the payment, and then also opportunity where they would say, hey, we'll give in addition to that in lieu of payment opportunity. So I see the value in that. I just want to have more conversation before we dive.
Melissa Andrews, Facility and Community Planning Manager.
There you go.
I said it right. Yay. Okay, so in regards to the two sites, one of the biggest things that we're having to deal with is we are already having extreme traffic impacts on Dublin from both Vista Ridge High School and Imagine. And so adding another school, especially in that number 13 area, would probably be a little controversial with the public as a whole. Even with offset bell times, we are constantly crowding that road. And number 14, again, just both of those two sites being on the west side of Mark Shuffle. Mark Shuffle is a huge major boundary because of the size of that road, and that we would not really want kids crossing that road in a walking scenario, and even busing. I think we could be more efficient by working with Banning Lewis Ranch and the new developers coming in underneath them. And I do have a say with all of these houses that come in if we want fees in lieu of land or if we want the land dedication itself. And I'm already working on a negotiation on the, let's see, the east side of Mark Shuffle, south of Barnes. There's a classic development that's going in there where I've requested land based on the number of homes that are coming in there. And then of course Oakwood with the north portion with Banning Lewis Ranch. The Village 3, there will not be a land dedication because the two sites in Village 2, which is the charter high school and the new elementary school that's going to go in. But in Village, what used to be 7, which is about Stetson Hills area, there's going to be some land dedication in there all the way across. That development is huge. There's going to be a lot of land dedications required in there. There's very little commercial, very little industrial, almost entirely residential.
Okay, so the answer to Dave's question about the eastward expansion is that we're not seeing green parcels of land there yet, because until the developer files the plans to develop it, there isn't a requirement for land to be dedicated. But the expectation is that as those areas are developed, we get to decide whether it's fee or land, and we'll be stating land in the areas that we may need a school to take care of that growth. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, it is.
Okay, does that make sense, Dave?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
The only way I would maybe rephrase that is that it's not the expectation, it's a requirement, as they develop those things, that land be made available.
Right,
So
right.
It's not, we're not expecting, we're not hoping.
Right.
It will.
We get to decide whether they give us money or land. So
Right.
that's the piece. They
Right.
have to do one or the other, and we get to tell them
Yes.
which one to do.
Yes.
My mantra, I think. Okay, so
And I
other
might
questions?
point out in the process is that we don't see the parcels on land that's currently has antelope and cattle on it. It's when they come into the county or the city for a development planning process, then they engage us, and we really don't know what's going on. And if I remember, this is going back to 4 or 5 years ago when we were working on one of the bond issues. If I remember correctly, Melissa, were these parcels that in your long-range plan, you don't think we'll ever need because of location? All 16 of these are, or are some of these ones that have potential value as school sites?
Yeah.
Is that a fair way to, did that make sense the way I asked it?
So to answer the question, we will not be willing to give up all 16 of these sites. 1 or 2 here or there, and we've kind of prioritized them and what is negotiable and what is absolutely not negotiable places that we see. And some of these are like the 2 sites side by side. There's 2 of them up in Forest Meadows where we could let one go, but we can't let both go, and we're not willing to let that happen. And so as the developers come in, they're going to ask about these. There's a couple, like the one in the bottom of the stream bed. Yeah, there's no way we'll ever be able to build on that one. So that one, I believe I've already asked the county planner to work with that developer to take that back for fees, because we cannot use that piece. So we'll need quite a few of these, but there are a few that we could let go of, and we will not be doing a disservice to ourselves in the future.
I set you up for that because I'd read that page too, that we do have site, there's been work. This isn't random. There's actually been a lot of thought put into this by our planning group.
Has there been any discussion of where the location would be of this new building?
There's been discussion, obviously no decision or anything like that, but in this discussion of, obviously is it, we have this facility, this site here, is this a place where it should just be rebuilt here? Or should it go to a site? We've even talked about, carving off a portion of number 13, and saying, okay, do we put it there? And then, release the rest of that site back. So different options are available to us. I think, overall, our desire would still have something that's central, right? Not only, and probably central, not only to the current layout of our district and the distribution of population and schools and facilities, but also what is the future, especially in the nearest term in terms of the next 20 years or so. So no discussion, certainly open for a lot of suggestion and preference on that part of the decision if we were to head that way.
I actually really see this as two issues. One, are we as a district and as the board willing to sell sites we believe back to the developers we believe we will never use and benefit from that? It's a unique opportunity. So that's the first question we ask ourselves. And then the proposal, one of the ideas that came back on how to do that is these are dollars that are outside the famous one-time spend statement we use a lot on budget items. This is one-time cash, and using that to replace in my opinion, an aging infrastructure we call the central office that is a declining asset. I think the communications modular was a great example of that, and to continue to invest. I think that's not in this. We made that decision on Allies. We don't want to go with more on modulars. We want to invest in stuff that's has longevity, and I agree with that approach. Location or another one. We're going to need a lot of buses in the future. It's a long range plan. So.
Well, and I guess I was going to add on to that and say it gives you a way to accomplish that goal, because we're essentially replacing this in kind of a Frankenstein piecemeal way. Like, okay, so let's convert a part of a warehouse by doing just-in-time storage instead of keeping more things on hand to create more offices, because we have a modular that needs to be taken down and can't even be rehabbed. And as I look, I can't even, I don't know, I've been on the board almost 6 years and I still can't navigate myself through this building because the hallways make no sense, because it's random modulars connected together in random ways that are a variety of ages. And so it seems like the type of thing that happened with the communications modular is going to continue to happen to the parts of the structures that aren't the core building. I mean, the core building is actually pretty small. And that might be something that gets rehabbed and because hello, this is District 49. There's no way we're ever truly vacating a space. We're repurposing it because that's what we have to do. But I think there could be a way to use the core space smartly, and this may give us a way to solve. This gives us a way to solve it. I think I think it's a unique way to solve it in a way that is not using any MLO money. Right? The MLO money is staying explicitly to take care of our kids and the schools and the facilities we have. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about generating a different resource to take care of a building that largely isn't directly serving students, but certainly impacts the way we serve kids. Because let's just, walk around it. It's Frankenstein building.
And recall too that we've heard from our transportation department, as that grows, that they need additional service area, and we have this building that we now have put a lot of people in the back here that really could and should be returned to that type of purpose. if we can have another space resource to be able to, move
Right.
those people out of that.
Well, and we're honestly, if you even look at what we've done with our central administration folks, they're spread out in all kinds of random places and have to, like, we've got people with offices in Creekside who probably 50% of the things they have to do, they have to come back to this building. So they're driving, we're half the traffic on Mark Shuffle, I swear. I pass people back and forth when I'm driving my kids to school there. So there is some piece of, can we have a facility that is made to house the people that need to be housed together to make their work more efficient as well? And we've experienced the boardroom craziness of, tonight we only had one thing that a lot of people wanted to hear, and that was the charter school presentation. But on nights where we've had more than one thing on our agenda, we're filling the parking lot up. And, it's like, okay, do we broadcast out? I mean, some of those concerns could be addressed in the same way, I think. I think it's a unique opportunity to do that. So I like that part of the idea. And I agree that there is two pieces to this. Do we want to sell land? And I think it's personally a disservice to the communities that vacant land is in to let it sit there and stay fallow and vacant if we know that it is not going to be useful as a school. And again, if you drive down Dublin, anytime during the school day, good luck getting through that four-way stop ever. And it's not even just traffic for Vista and Imagine that impact that. There's access for Ridgeview off of there, and there's access to Skyview for anybody coming from the northern part of the district that's served there. And as we contemplate shifting the borders of zones as we do part of that new construction, that's going to shift additional traffic there already without ever building one more new building there that's related to schools. So it's highly unlikely we use that one. And 12.5 acres is pretty small for a lot of things too. And again, if we know that the likelihood is that we would be building schools on the other side of Mark Shuffle because that's where the development is going to be, and the land would come with it as that development is, it's a disservice to the people who live around that plot to leave it vacant. I think you're smarter and more respectful of your neighbors to sell it back to the developer, get the money, and do something smart with the money.
Just so I may interrupt here, the yes on 3B side of me says, I'd like to be involved in this project, and both Mr. Ridgway and Ms. Andrews know that I'm drool about that. So include me in on that conversation if you would.
Certainly, we would look forward to that.
Yeah, because the whole point would be we wouldn't be using 3B money on this, right? So that would be the other important messaging, is that this is money separate from 3B, separate from our general operating funds. We've found a different way to fund a needed facility, which I think is respectful of what the voters approved too.
Well, if we don't do anything with this land, it's lost opportunity. If we're not going to build a school on it and we don't sell it, and quite frankly, if we start that process, I think the choice too, before selling, us taking it, then the Parks Department gets a shot at it. So if it would open it up to the parks at that point, if it's a desirable park site, and then the builder has a shot to buy it for the fees. So, and then after it goes open, so we're starting a process to put that back into the economy.
It is flipped around that way. You said parks first and then developer first and then parks.
Oh, is it developer first?
Yeah.
Oh, I lied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the
But
individual, it's the
parks
developer who
before it goes to
dedicated.
open market.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
parks before, but it does
Yeah.
start the process. It's just going to sit there until we make a decision.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why we have this inventory of land, this is accumulated over the lifetime of the district, right? And so some of these parcels, were dedicated at a time and with a different style of leadership, shall we say, and were accepted when that was acceptable that way. But some of these things don't fit the current definition of an acceptable piece of land to us anymore. Melissa mentioned, something having too much drainage, it just being a lot of drainage. That's not a site that should have been accepted, but it was accepted several years ago before pretty much any of us were here. So how do we deal with that? you know. and
So I guess what do you need from us tonight?
So I've mentioned the opportunity there of the $2.5 million and the potential for that to be added to that. What we've had high level exploratory conversations with architect. What can we do? Is there feasibility with that type of amount of money to do something here? We'd like to pursue that further. I don't like to. We would pursue that further if this is a scenario that you're willing for us to pursue. And then we would continue that discussion and bring back some of that result to you in a subsequent meeting and say yes or no. They think that there's feasibility in this with these type of dollars, and then bring it to that eventual decision point.
So are we looking at multiple decision points? So as Kevin said, breaking it into decision point one, are we willing to sell back land that planning has determined is highly unlikely for us to be able to use, including stream beds? Sorry, that
Correct.
drives me insane that someone would give a school district that.
Yes, you're right.
We would accept.
Yeah, both pieces are ridiculous, right? So that's question one, right? And that's separate from then what do we determine to do with any revenue from that sale of said lands? So do we need that as a two-step process then? Or so what do we bring back next, I guess is the question. Would you like us to, because we can't vote here right now. So I can say, gee, it looks like we kind of got some nods that maybe we are interested in pursuing selling, but actual action and direction is going to take a vote, which can't occur here.
You're right. You're right. So yeah, probably that first step would be some action on whether you are interested in pursuing converting some of these lands into fee in lieu.
Okay, so that question probably we'd be ready for the July meeting.
I would think
Correct?
so, yes.
Okay, so can we have that as one question at the July meeting? The second question of what do we do with that resource and consider options for what people are willing to do as the matching fund scenario kind of phrasing. That's a separate question. And what is the timeline? Because I'm thinking there may be people, we may have board members want a little more information and clarity and thinking on that. Am I right or wrong? Because I'm comfortable as presented, but I'm not sure where everyone else is. So do you want more thinking time and maybe some time to percolate over other questions about that first before we do that faster, or no?
Which stage are we talking about? Are we talking
Okay, so
about?
stage one is the selling stage.
Okay.
That we've already got decided
So
they can come back to that with us in July. Stage two is what do we do with any funds from sales, right? Which is the opportunity to possibly build a facility for this. I'm asking what is a reasonable timeline for them to have information for us? And if there are other questions or concerns that board members may want addressed before then. So like, is it reasonable for that to maybe be more like in August so that people have time to think?
I guess
Or where are we?
I would suggest maybe having that one as an action item and then having another discussion item.
In July.
If we have the full complement of board members and have an opportunity to receive questions.
Okay.
At a July meeting so that we could be able to respond
So at
to
the
that.
July.
Because again,
Sorry.
we're working with developers. They have urgency on certain, on strategies and things on that and their own operations. So we need to be able to be respectful of that and not draw it out too long. We need to be able to have a decision.
Right. So what you'd be looking for then is in addition, a discussion item at the July regular meeting, because that's the only
Yes.
meeting we have in July,
Right.
about once we've taken action and said, yes, we're interested in selling, options for investment of the money from that sale opportunity and any additional funds that may be contributed by outside organizations like
Yeah.
FCBC.
What are general parameters?
And what are
Yeah.
the parameters that the board is willing to accept or consider? And so we phrase that as a separate discussion item for July so that board members have time to. So Dave, if you have further questions, or if John does once he reads this, or Tammy or Kevin, any of us, we can get those to you hopefully in time for them to be prepared for them at the July meeting too. So Dave, is that fair for you to be able to, if you have other questions or concerns, for you to be prepared? Not only, it would be helpful to Brett's team most likely if you could email some of those in advance so they if it's something that takes a more detailed or researched answer, they have an opportunity to do that. So would you be able to do that over the next week or two? Get them your set of questions?
Yes, understood, and look for Brett and Melissa.
Okay.
Very
All
good.
right. Yep. So if you get them the questions, then they can incorporate any of those into their presentation. Kevin?
And I would also like the question, because I foresee, so we're going to use Marie's phrase, to avoid building the next Frankenstein. Do we need to be engaging planning professionals, architects, or anybody like that in the process? I mean, or if you're going to have needs for those, come back with an idea of what you're going to need. I actually look at the map of the district, and I've looked a lot at the overall Banning Lewis Ranch plan. And Melissa and I actually talked about this the other day on the phone, that the original Banning Lewis plan did have a kind of a consolidated facility. Now, this is back from the 80s. So a consolidated facility proposed for the school district. And if I remember, it involved a stadium for the entire district, some administrative offices, because it gets into there. And that, I think that land has changed hands 4 or 5 times since that plan. But that is the concept plan that's sitting on file in the city. So should we be engaging some of these far out developments that are long and seeing if they can help us plan a central, in their land dedications, a central office facility, along with community facilities we need for the district. So just kind of, that's my vague direction I would ask for going forward. And if we do need consultants to get us, what do we need to get there from here to make a good decision?
And I would say making sure there's engagement with education office as well. So there's an understanding there, because their understanding and perception of need may be different, based on how they work versus how you guys work. So making sure there's some clear opportunity for communication, especially if you're starting to look at design of building or space and what kinds of things are useful there. I think it's important to make sure we're looping everybody in. So, so does that enough direction for now? Yep, go on ahead.
So I don't want us to get thinking that's the only using this money, but I don't want to waste your time, coming up with alternatives that we could use for the money, if that's truly the only thing that admin thinks we should be looking at for that money. But I'm just a little concerned that we're not being given options of what else we could do with that, like buy 5 or 6 school buses. I don't want to not provide our central office staff with a better facility than what they have, but I also don't want us to be only given one option. I don't know if anybody else thinks that that's something to even look at it, if we're okay with doing this and not looking at that.
No, I can certainly provide, other scenarios, that, would obviously abandon, the matching fund opportunity. And we can just quantify those and say it's equivalent to however many buses, or equivalent to this, and then to be able to compare that next to the opportunity that would be presented.
Right. Well, and an understanding of what funding streams are that provide for some of those needs. So, for example, 3B, because it's a continuing funding stream, that continuing funding stream, however, in terms of capital projects, can only be used for certain types of projects. So when we've used the 3B money to completely pay for the buildings we're currently building, eventually that portion of 3B becomes available again for additional buildings, but those additional buildings, by intent of the voter, probably would be actual classrooms and schools. So that stream is a dedicated ongoing stream that we know we can use to solve some problems, but can't be used to solve this problem. And so I think as we're thinking about those options, we also have to think through through that piece of it, of where do we know we have other opportunity to invest, and where do we know, or other opportunity to fund, not to invest, and where do we know, there's no way you get this taken care of through MLO. Not until every single modular is gone from every single school in District 49, which probably won't happen in my lifetime. So just realistically, right, that's where we'd be with our voters, not because I don't think it's worth investing in, but we all know how hard that would be to get. So I think that's an important consideration when we're thinking through that too.
Okay, very good.
All right, so do you have enough direction for us for
Yes.
where we need to go on this?
Yes, I believe so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for working on this. All right, so now you've got what you need. We have the one action item about selling and then a discussion item. All right, so now we're on to policy and procedure review. These were minor adjustments. Anybody have any questions on any of those? Dave, are you good on the policies?
I am, thank you.
All right, so then we'll move those forward, please, for action. Monthly financial report. Brett, do we have much that we need to go through?
Page report. And Jody is our new accounting group manager. She is ready to.
Ron got an entire year's budget approved in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Come on.
So the monthly report will take double that?
So originally I
Excuse me.
submitted only the appendix. I apologize for that. And then we did it. The appendix is the last 80 pages of the 211. I don't know if I'll ever get to the back here, because that's what I'm familiar with. I did want to show you a couple of things here, because again, what we like to do with this is refer you to a couple particular pages with specific numbers that are relevant for either the point in time that we're in the fiscal year or such. So in the appendix, at this point of year, we're 11 months through the year. This is the May report. We're 11 months through the year, right? So we're watching carefully about how we're going to come in according to the budget of 16-17 according to the amended budget. So what is relevant for us to look at again is this first page, which is designed to meet our statutory requirements of providing you revenue and expenditures according to budget and fund balance walk. And what we see here in the general fund in the upper left-hand corner is our revenues are budgeted at $97.3 million, sitting at $83.6 million year to date through end of May. 99 expenses at 99, just under $100 million, sitting at $89.1 million through the end of May. So the percentage that's there that's relevant, 85%, 85.9% of revenue received, 89.8% of expenses received, and being able to compare that to a prior year. So here we have the 15-16 pattern. So here's where we were at May year to date for 15-16. We were at 85.8% of revenue. We're at 85.9% this year. So we are on that consistent pattern of revenue collection. Expenditures were at 89.8. Last year we were at 88.2. I'm sorry, 89.2 versus 88.2. So we're right there at 1% difference. So just to be able to give you comfort and whoever would endeavor to be aware of this information, that we are on a normal track. We are in a good place as we wind down the year in the general fund especially, and then as you see all the other funds going down the page. I will limit it to that if you really want me to.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
And yeah, just don't, yeah, you did. I'm glad you didn't give me too hard a time, because remember, Jody is going to, when we want Dean to come up here and do this, and you don't want to scare her off right at the start. Okay.
We won't scare her off.
All right.
All right. So now we are on to number 11, the update on goal 3. Oop. No, that was it, right? We did 10. Okay. So we are on to the update on goal 3, and where we were on that one was looking at y'all proposing what that should look like, correct? So Peter and Brett, you are on.
So yeah, what we've included in your packet is really a draft of a regulation that doesn't exist now. And so something that we would, you know, want to bring to you to start working with. So this is really a draft, kind of really a working draft that we want to use this as the starting point. We want your feedback and observations on it about that would be board member code of conduct for individual meetings with district staff. This is something, again, that we talked about in going back to the planning retreat as a priority for the board. Also recognizing, you know, in scenarios before and since that, you know, it's something that is also a delicate situation because as the elected leaders of the district, you are perceived in certain ways. And so how you are presenting yourself and presenting the things that you say and do at these meetings needs to be handled with great care. And so what we're really trying to do is define certain examples of interactions and what would be the you know, specific suggestions on how to approach that. So you'll see here on the bottom of this first page, we identified 5 different kinds of individual visits, and these are individual board member interactions with staff, not you as a group. So we have, you know, we start with these edification or visibility tours. We have coordinated visits, ad hoc visits. You know, for those of you that have children in the district, those ad hoc visits occur every single day, right? And so how are we, you know, cognizant of that and aware of that? You know, specific issue visits, investigatory visits. Those are the categories that we started off with. And so I think a lot of work still can and should be applied to this. But I think a lot of work also has gone into it to get to this point. Yeah.
It's a good start.
Is Peter still around?
Peter, do you want to add anything?
I am here. I am catching some of what Brett is saying. It's a little bit choppy, but this is a document that we've been working on it. And what he explained was, I think the sense that we share with the board is that the board's role is so important that we want to do our best to optimize it. And so I think thinking in terms of the different classes of interaction is the most important thing. And I'd be really interested to hear the board's feedback on whether we're arriving at the right classes of interactions.
The one that I actually like the best is when you state in here that board members would report back to the rest of the board how their meetings go.
Oh, yes, back on the next page there.
Yeah,
Number 0.4 here on.
yes. I thought that would be very informative and is a great suggestion to do as these visits happen. That way everybody is kind of in the loop on different topics that are happening in the district and what each other is doing.
The other point I liked is number one, that the board needs to, we don't have this problem on this board, but we're speaking to future boards also, that we as a board only have 3 other members, but understanding the chain of it for managers. We don't have that right now, but again, this is speaking into the future also and setting a precedent. And that's really, I like the tenor of the whole idea of kind of teaching a little bit of common sense about how a board should operate.
And to follow up with that, we do have only 3 employees and none of us as one individual can direct you. It's a board that we do that as. So even when we're out at these meetings, we can't, I mean, it's definitely nothing that one of us can obligate the district or the chiefs or anything to do. It has to be from a board, and that really needs to be hit hard.
What I appreciate, guys, is the fact that this also allows us to be visible within the community, specifically with the schools, and be a sounding board, a listening board for not necessarily concerns, but just in terms of what's going on and our presence in throughout the district.
Okay, so feedback on anything that people want added, anything that they see needs adjustment, because I think the proposal at one level is to come up with is to develop this into a regulation. Aspects that maybe are or are not developed.
And I just want to say that this is also about establishing clarity for the staff as much as for the board, you know. So I don't want this to be received or perceived that this is trying to make sure that the board understands this, but also so that the staff has comfort in knowing what the board is how they're approaching you as a staff member or in a staff meeting and things like that. So this is definitely trying to establish a good clarity on both sides of that discussion.
Well, yeah, I think that's valid, especially when you take a look at, for example, ad hoc visits. Okay, so because when you're in the pickup line with your kid, it's not the time for somebody to consistently tell you what they don't like about their school and how you should address it with their supervisor because they don't want to. And several of us get put in that position fairly frequently. I mean, there were people that I would purposely avoid, or I learned to just sit in my car. I no longer got out of my car to go get my children like many of the other parents because I found that access was inappropriate and put me in a bad place. So I think that's important in the both directions. So helping our staff understand what's kind of appropriate to be and how it's appropriate to be interacting with us and how it's not, especially because many of us will have those dual roles. You know, people tend to like that we're parents in the district, but then you gotta let us be parents too and not turn every parent teacher conference or every school play or whatever that we have to go to in an opportunity for you to vent how much you either supervisor or hate your colleague and how I should fix it. I got real good at shutting it down and knowing who to avoid, but I think that there's a level of respect that has to go both ways on that.
Yes,
And
very good observation.
Helping staff understand that ad hoc is not necessarily the appropriate way to interact too is helpful. Anything else? So where do we want to go with this for next steps, guys? Feedback. Do we want another read on it first at a regular meeting for more input? Do we want to develop it into a regulation? So do we want to add this as continue this as a discussion at the July meeting? And get everybody here for that one?
Okay.
But I thank
Peter,
you for the work on
and
this.
Peter and I, you continue. We're good at wordsmithing things, and I know we will continue to look at this and say, okay, what have we not addressed? What have we maybe pointed in an incorrect direction? So so the words on this will be very important. So as you read it and think about it, and you have wording, context, observations that you want to relate to us, please do that, and we can definitely keep this as a working draft until through this next discussion type opportunity before we start to say, okay, let's introduce it into the formal process of the policy adoption.
Okay, so are we good with this piece for now then? Dave, are you good?
Yep.
All right, so then we'll move this.
No, I think that's a good summary of what I heard.
Okay, perfect. So then we are going to move that to discussion again for July. Chief officer reports. Anything we need to review other than what was in writing to us?
Nope.
Okay.
Did you need to tell us anything?
The one thing I wanted to mention was the board was that you should all have gotten an email from Cascade giving you opportunities to log in. And I noticed that some of you have already logged in, but you might be a little bewildered if you've logged in, which is a normal response. So I think it's going to take a meeting with 3 people. I think at this point it would be best if the board liaison and Brett and I, so maybe it's 4 people, so maybe Brett and I and both of our liaisons can sit down and go through our individual goals together. And then I can introduce you to a tool in Cascade that one-on-one meeting tool. It just allows us to keep track of what are we discussing, what are you expecting, etc. And then perhaps at a future work session, someone, it doesn't need to be me, but somebody in our organization that's a trained trainer, board members, an overview of how to look at the overall district's goals and plans, but especially the chief officer goals and plans.
So I've been through 2 of the training sessions that are on there, and they're very helpful, but it is overwhelming to even try and do alone, so I would definitely appreciate some help with it.
Second.
So is your suggestion to schedule something then also at a work session where we're getting trained too? Is that what you're trying to say, Peter? Is it a liaison meeting, but then also additional training for the full board?
I think a small training, perhaps at the August work session, but because by then we'll have trained internally.
Okay.
But paired with some one-on-two or one-on-one sessions with chief officer and our liaison. Have 3 board members there, but we shouldn't need 3.
Right. Okay, so can you put that as a potential holding spot for our August work session?
Peter, Kevin says he didn't get an email. Is there any way you could resend that to him?
I will resend that email, sir.
Spelled with a K. Oh, it's not a K. No, I said C, not a K. It's still not.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
Okay, so anything else we need to be looking at? We have the monthly chief officer reports. Peter, is there anything you need to give to us on that right now? Or are you good based on the writing and then?
I am good based on the writing and especially based on the 4 reports that you have from the education office today. You've heard a lot about the education side.
Okay, and then last is our chief officer performance review goals. Is that just essentially what you guys wanted to tell us about Cascade, or is there some other things you want us to?
No, that's really
really-
about how, my intention was how do chief officer reports, end up translating into Cascade.
Okay.
And, just aren't as far along with that with the last couple of weeks' activity as I would like to be.
Okay, so that plan will actually then that's going to dovetail anyway into the
Yeah,
August piece then?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it looks like, unless someone else has anything else to bring up, we might be done. Peter, do you have anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right, Dave, anything?
Yeah, somebody better give Tammy something a little bit stronger than water.
Okay, and
Sorry, I'm sick.
with that, I think
Get better.
we are done. Go enjoy your family, Dave.
Enjoy your family, Dave.